Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, Madam Toastmaster, and distinguished guests.
Good evening.
This evening, well, first of all, how many of you have ever watched The Tonight Show? Oh, I see a nice show of hands. But do you really know The Tonight Show? I see one vigorous nodding of the head, so I think you do look like you really know The Tonight Show. But if you don't know The Tonight Show, in the next 7 minutes you will really know what The Tonight Show is. The Tonight Show is the spirit of America. I say The Tonight Show is the spirit of America because that's what the host of The Tonight Show have made it. Let me start out with the first host, Jack Parr. I'm sorry, he's the second one. First host was, this guy's name, Steve Allen. How many of you know Steve Allen? Name sound familiar? Well, let me talk about Steve Allen. Does Steve Allen have a star on the Walk of Fame? No. Steve Allen has 2 stars on the Walk of Fame. One as a entertainer, an actor, TV personality, and the other as a musician. Steve Allen wrote 10,000 songs, published 10,000 songs. One of his jazz compositions won a Grammy. As the first host of The Tonight Show from 1954 to 1957, now remember, Tonight Show is the spirit of what? America. Television was in its infancy. If you can remember or you read about American history at that time, you understand that we were in the midst of a Cold War. Steve Allen made that show an entertainment behemoth. He's responsible for the careers of many of our illustrious actors and actresses. The gentleman who hosts The Tonight Show on CBS, Dave Letterman, credits his wanting to be a talk show host because he watched Steve Allen as a kid. Steve Allen's parents were vaudeville royalty. His mother was noted as the best comedian in vaudeville. Vaudeville now was what TV and movies are today. There was no TV and movies, so people went to theaters. Theaters were elegant, gold inlay paint, velvet curtains, and you had to perform live every night. That was people's television, going to a vaudeville show. So a lot of people became famous and left, citizens light up their life by becoming vaudevillian stars. So, to progress, Steve Allen became the first live. The Tonight Show was live, and the time slot was 11:15 to 1 a.m. live. And he was so bursting with entertainment genes and so musical. And they did their own commercials live. They were the commercial. So they bring out the product and they do the commercial. And it was just nuts. And he had the venue for the years that he had the show as a venue for entertainers. And it was just specifically an entertainment mecca. Now, the next host of The Tonight Show was no joke. And not many of you might know the name of Jack Parr. But not only did Jack Parr host The Tonight Show, he helped change American politics. Say, what? A talk show host helped change American politics? That's right. Jack Parr hosted The Tonight Show from 1957 to 1962. He invented format talk show host. The first time in America, well, television was in its infancy. The first time a talk show format was invented. He invented it. It was his show. He had been a radio personality prior to this, but he was an intellectual man. He invented the format of the talk shows we know today. The guests come out, the host comes out with a monologue, followed by a sit-down guest, followed by some type of skit, and then followed by some musical entertainment. Jack Parr had Che Guevara, he had Castro, he had Bobby Kennedy, he had Goldwater, who ran, just barely lost to John Kennedy for the presidency of the United States. Jack Parr had intellectual themes that he espoused on the Tonight Show. In addition to his humor and his wit, he was no joke. To tell you the type of person he was, like his 4th year into the show, he had a disagreement with one of the censors of NBC. They wanted to edit out one of his words of his monologue. So, coming onto the show, upset, to say the least, came out there and he said, he was doing his monologue. And he was so upset in doing the monologue, in mid-sentence he said, you know what, mind you, this is a live show. I can't do this anymore. And he walked off the show. Walked off the show. He was gone for 6 weeks. NBC was going nuts. Whatever they did to get Jack back, when Jack came back on the show, he said, now, let me see where I was at before I was really up. And he continued with the same monologue he had left the show with. Now I'm going to just come. Oh, and how he changed political history in America, Jack Parr? The Holy Trinity. Walter Winchell, Senator Joe McCarthy, and the great late J. Edgar Hoover. 3 madmen in America who changed American policy in the Cold War. If they said you were a communist, you didn't work in America for life. They blacklisted so many American entertainers and ruined so many careers of businessmen, citizens, and educators in America. It was horrendous. Walter Winchell was the first gossip columnist. Walter Winchell had 50 million readers a day. 50 million readers a day just in his daily New York Times newspaper column. Jack Parr went head-to-head with Walter Winchell. He wasn't stupid. He didn't go head-to-head with Walter Winchell at the height of Walter's career. But when the American policy was shifting away from all of that anti-communist and all of this horrific, literally banned citizenry, Jack Parr took on Walter Winchell on his Tonight Show and basically just ran him out of town. He was exposing him to the heinous person that he was. Because basically he was just an uneducated high school dropout who happened to know gangsters in Brooklyn, ran away from Brooklyn to California because they were going to kill him because he knew too much, befriended J. Edgar Hoover, who was his protector, helped make Hoover's career by giving Hoover the head of Murder Incorporated, who was an Irish gang who worked both sides of the fence, and anybody who wanted somebody killed, just pay them and they'd kill you. He made J. Edgar Hoover's career. Hoover put his protective arm under him, and he befriended Senator Joe McCarthy, and together they spotted American people and created this we're holier than thou megalith of, you know, IDing you a communist folk. At any rate, so Jack Parr helped change American culture by getting rid of Walter Winchell and squishing that spying on Americans and condemning them as communists in the entertainment world forever. Getting now to the third talk show host, Johnny Carson. That name speaks for itself. I don't know how many of you in the audience here have grew up with Johnny. Johnny was the manifestation of the 60s, 70s, and the early 80s. He embodied the spirit of America. Witty, intelligent, fast on his feet, have you laughing. He was like your best friend when you turned the show on at 11:30 at night. He would touch on the day-to-day activity of the world and then just, you know, sum it all up and keep it moving with this ridiculous humor and entertainment with not just his monologue, but his interaction with his guests. And I'm just going to give you one example because there's too many to, you know, we can give you hours. But there's no children in the room. He had Zsa Zsa Gabor on the show. Anybody remember this show with Zsa Zsa Gabor on? Oh, that's good. Zsa Zsa Gabor got on the show, and she came out, and she was a glamorous woman, came out with this beautiful Persian cat. And she's sitting in the seat, stroking this Persian cat. Now, she knew she had Johnny. She had this plan. She was going to catch him off guard, because Johnny was never speechless. Never speechless. He always had a comeback. So I'm going to catch him off guard and leave him shocked. So she's sitting there stroking the cat, had this mini skirt on, and she's like, John, would you like to play with my feline expression for cat? And Johnny looked at what I'm missing and said, hell, if you moved the damn cat off your life, I'd love to. That's the type of guy Johnny was. But like I said, that show has embodied the spirit of America since its inception. The current host, Jay Leno, who is good, I'm not even going to mention the other guy, who was Conan O'Brien, but I have to briefly. Jay Leno is trying to uphold the legacy of Johnny Carson. That's all he's doing. The reason his show is not as potent as Johnny's is because American society is what it is today. Okay? That show is a reflection of the spirit of America. The reason Conan O'Brien ain't making it is because these young kids' humor and these young kids' substance is lacking. And O'Brien is just a reflection of these young kids' substance and humor as Americans. So, like I said, if you want to know what's happening in America, just keep watching The Tonight Show. Thank you.
You should have told us your speech was 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah,